Hi, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk Chicago. My name's Jon Zaghloul. Great to have you here on Channel 59.3 BPOD TV and Roku. Big news coming at you today as Mitch Trubisky has broken his silence and what happened here in Chicago. We'll tell you about what he said in just a second. Before we get started, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports and on Facebook at Jon Zaghloul. If you want to watch more of this show, search up Sports Talk Chicago on YouTube or go to sportstalkchicago.com. If you want to watch more shows from the BPOD TV network, search up BPOD TV on YouTube. I want to start today with this. When you wrong somebody, chances are you're going to be caught. You might feel invincible in the moment. There's no way they're going to get me, but you will be caught. Whether it's directly or indirectly. Take the Bears, for example. We had no proof that Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky didn't get along, but we saw by the way the games went. We saw by how they talked on the sidelines. We saw by how Mitch Trubisky was run out of town that there was a problem. And while mainstream media chose to ignore it or called me a conspiracy theorist, the fact is there was a problem. Didn't get along. Didn't work well together, and Mitch Trubisky was run out of town. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a big Mitch Trubisky apologist, but it makes no sense to me that a guy with a 93.5 passer rating, 16 touchdowns, 8 picks in 12 games deserved to be kicked out. Didn't play bad. Didn't stink it up. Did okay. Kicked out of town. That never sat right with me. I always blamed Matt Nagy. And now after this past year, we know it was Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy was the issue. That's why he got fired. And ever since he's been gone, now, new information's being shed to light. Finally, we waited long enough. We deserve an explanation for what happened, and now we're getting it. I came on a couple of weeks ago and gave you the bombshell news, according to Kevin Fishbein and Adam Johns of The Athletic, that essentially Matt Nagy sabotaged Mitch Trubisky. And now, for the first time since leaving Chicago, Mitch Trubisky has commented on that report, on what happened here in Chicago, and what his plans are for the future. Color me surprised. I'm surprised it took this long for him to say something. And I get it. Probably fearful of his career and what Matt Nagy could do. But now we have proof. Now we have news of what he said. Mitch gave an interview to the Buffalo News for his thoughts regarding the apologies from Clark and others about what happened. A couple of analysts on ESPN apologized, saying, oh, it's not Mitch's fault. Matt Nagy was the one, obviously, with how he treated Justin Fields. Trubisky's response to the apologies, quote, I don't know, I'm not sure. It doesn't necessarily bring me peace because I'm not where I want to be yet as a player, and I just believe it was kind of just part of my journey to where my career is going to go, so I haven't really thought about it too much, honestly. He also noted that things may have been happening, quote, behind the scenes when Nagy was coach that the public may not have been privy to. Another quote, but I think that's something people just realize with time. It's never exactly how it seems, right? Like, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that people don't know about or people don't see. So to hear those apologies, I didn't really know what to think of it. Besides, it was a little too late. Like, it was already over for me. It's already in the past. So there's really no point for me to think about it or stress about it. He took the high road. And that, to me, tells me all I need to know about who he is as a person and a player. I would have had a much different response, personally. And you all know me, especially if you watch me. I'm not scared to voice my opinion. I would have had a completely different response. I would have come down and roasted Nagy for what he did. If this was my career and I was sabotaged by a certain head coach, you better believe I'd say something. Mitch didn't. Goes to show you his character. He was run out of town. Sabotaged on the field. Taken out for virtually no reason. And all he says now is it's in the past. Let's move on. Stand up, guy. I wish he would have said more. I wish he would have come down and berated Matt Nagy for what happened, but he didn't. Meanwhile, Matt Nagy is silent, which I find a bit interesting, don't you? You'd think if you were a coach, you'd want to defend yourself when all these allegations come out, not just from Mitch Trubisky, but Allen Robinson. He's not saying a word, as far as I know. I haven't heard any response from Matt Nagy in the news or on a podcast, wherever it might be. Interesting. I get it. It's time to respond, but these are pretty serious allegations, right? And we're talking about blowing off meetings, hindering players' development, and apparently it doesn't matter enough to make a comment. That says one of two things. One, he's working with a PR team to help him craft a good one, or two, it's true and there's nothing really he could say. Why not come out and at least refute it? Say, well, that's not the full story, or that didn't really happen. Nothing's been said. There's been silence on Matt Nagy's part. Silence in this case means you were complicit. Means it happened. Means you're guilty. Until I hear otherwise, you're guilty. There's nothing to be said. And look, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to make this more than what it is. I'm sure there have been tons of times where we've seen coaches and quarterbacks sabotage one another. Look at the Arizona Cardinals and Josh Rosen. I'm not saying Josh Rosen's a great quarterback, but he was sabotaged. There's a rookie head coach, Steve Wilks, defensive guy, didn't work. Rosen was permanently broken, traded away, they brought in Kyler Murray, and now Rosen's career is back up at best. Unfortunate. I never liked Rosen anyway for his comments before the draft saying I should have been number one. I'm better than all the quarterbacks chosen before me. Obviously not, but he was sabotaged by Steve Wilks. You'll hear players defend Steve Wilks, but these are defensive guys. Charles Tillman, defensive guy. These are people who know him for his defensive-mindedness. When he was a head coach, he sabotaged a quarterback. So I'm not saying this stuff is new or this is a bombshell. But all it does is justify and indicate what we've been talking about for the past couple of years here in Chicago. I find it wrong that no one's talking about it. I don't know, to me this is pretty important news, wouldn't you say? And again, in any other market besides Chicago, this would literally be front page news. Literally front page news. I know newspapers are dying off, but you know what? When that report came out about Matt Nagy and Mitch, you would think somebody big would pick it up. Instead, it was in The Athletic. Wasn't front page news. Nobody else took it and ran with the story. Everybody was silent. Why? I don't get it. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, why did it take so long? We got people here on the beat. I report every day about everything that goes on with the Bears. And this was before the coronavirus, too. They had locker room access and nobody said a word. Why? Look, I get it. You're scared of losing your press passes. But at the end of the day, you're supposed to be a journalist. A journalist reports the truth, no matter what. A true journalist, at least. I would have gladly lost my press passes to tell the truth. And that's why, as much as I'd like to be credentialed, I also wouldn't. I tell you the truth here. There's no muzzle on me. I don't have to worry about, oh no, my credentials are going to be gone. I'm telling you exactly how I see it. What I see here is a miscarriage of justice in the NFL. For Mitch Trubisky. I want to say this too. I'm not saying he'd be a top 10 quarterback. He'd be an elite quarterback. I looked up his numbers yesterday just to take a look. 2018, that great year he had, 95.4 passer rating, 15th in the NFL. I've said multiple times, Mitch Trubisky, with the right coaching, with the right scheme, with the right team around him, would be the 15th to 20th best quarterback in the NFL. To me, not a bust. That is not the definition of a bust. What he did in Chicago should not make him a bust. Highest rated passer in Bears history. That should tell you a lot about Bears history, but still, it doesn't make him a bust. Now we have news Now we know there's proof, and here's the report. And get this, too. Get this. Here from Outkick, a report about the Bills general manager, Brandon Beane. He commented on Mitch Trubisky and his future. Quote, if anybody calls me about Mitch and another team, I'm going to give him a great recommendation, and I've told him and his agent, if he doesn't get what he wants, we've got a spot for him. So obviously, he made a good enough impression in Buffalo to stay. They're not running him out of town. And I get it, not a starter, different story, but still. He obviously is competent enough to hold a roster spot in the NFL. They liked him, and he tore it up against the Bears in the preseason. You could say what you want about the preseason, but guess what? If he did bad, would have been talked about for weeks here in Chicago. See, we told you, see? No. He tore it up. He looked great. Trubisky said about the Buffalo offense, it's a lot less restricted than what I've been in the past. The quarterback has a lot more freedom to make checks, go where he wants with the ball, exploiting matchups and getting the optimal play for this team. So it's been a really fun offense to learn. I feel like it's really quarterback friendly once you get it down. Article goes on to state, too, with the dual threat element in the 27-year-old's arsenal, may not take long for a team to get Trubisky another crack at a starting job. I know Mitch Trubisky somewhere will be competing for a starting job in 2022. That's just a fact. You could laugh, you could deride me, you could say, John, you're crazy, you don't know football. It's a fact. A lot of teams are quarterback needy. Buccaneers, Washington football team, or Washington Commanders, Denver Broncos, Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, 4 teams right there who actually really need a quarterback. Potentially Green Bay, potentially Minnesota. New Orleans, too. There are a lot of options for Mitch Trubisky to resurface and get another shot. I think he deserves it. The fact is he was sabotaged, though. And that's my problem. That's my problem with this whole thing. You can say what you want. I don't want this to turn into a Mitch Trubisky bust or not argument, or the Bears made a mistake, Ryan Pace made a mistake. I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm here to talk about the fact that no matter what you think, whether you say good or not, whether you say bad pick or not, whether you say bust or not, you have to acknowledge he was sabotaged. Proof in the pudding. And for him to come out and say, it's in the past, let's move on, great character on his part. If it were me, I would have been much more pissed off. He kept it short, kept it sweet, and at the end of the day, was happy in Buffalo for the year he was there. And now chances are he will be a starter somewhere. If not a starter, he will compete. And then we'll know. I mean, seriously, then we'll know whether he's good or not. Let's see him in a good system with somebody who doesn't hate him. Somebody who doesn't want to sabotage him, see him fail. Then we could talk about whether or not he's a good quarterback, whether or not he deserves to be in the NFL, whether or not he was a bust of a pick. But to be the highest rated passer in Bears history and to be sabotaged simultaneously, that does not mean you're a bust. Gotta stop saying that. I don't care if you don't like him or not. The fact is, not a bust. This was a great point, too. A lot of people have been asking me, why are you still talking about Mitch Trubisky? Look, right now, there's nobody better for the Bears. I want Justin Fields to be better, but the fact is, after last year, not better yet. So until I see Justin Fields put up insane numbers, which could happen next year, realistically, I'm not going to sit here and just go all out about Justin Fields and forget about Mitch Trubisky when he made real contributions. He did make real contributions. Statistically, he did. That's not a controversial opinion. I know nobody's going to like me for that statement, but it's a fact. He made real contributions to this team. Mitch Trubisky. Sorry. Numbers don't lie. This guy got a raw deal here in Chicago. He did. Highest rated passer in Bears history. Somewhat consistent. I mean, consistent enough to be a 15th to 20th best quarterback. He was sabotaged. He was thrown out of town, and everybody blamed him. That's what I find funny. Everybody blamed Mitch Trubisky. There was so much, and there still is, so much hatred about Mitch. But not enough hatred about Matt Nagy. That's true. When I made the Mitch Trubisky video a couple of weeks ago about the big report coming out, there was more hatred there than about Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's the one who sabotaged him and Justin Fields. Why is that the case? There's a reason. Nice to see ESPN apologize. I remember, and I always say this, last year, draft. They did a big opening for the draft, and they were saying, oh, some quarterbacks you pick could help your team, and some could set them back. They show a picture of Mitch Trubisky. Are you kidding me? Set him back? He didn't set the Bears back. Matt Nagy did. That's an inaccurate statement to make. This is the stuff I don't like. And this is why when you come to this channel, you're going to hear the truth. Nobody else is covering this story. Nobody else cares. I care. And some people do care. There are segments of the Bears population, Bears fan population, who cares about this story. And who will watch Mitch wherever he goes next. I know I will. I want to see what happens to him. And I'm genuinely curious. Was it his fault? Was it Nagy's fault? We'll find out with a new coach and a new team if he starts. But more than anything, this story has to be brought to light. If nobody else is willing to cover it, if nobody else cares, I will. What did I say to open up this show? If you wrong somebody, chances are at some point, it'll be exposed. You're not invincible. Matt Nagy was not invincible. Bought him one more year. Then he got fired. Well, everybody wants to keep quiet about it. I'll talk about it. It's the right thing to do. This isn't me being a Trubisky apologist. This is being forthright and honest and trying to serve justice when justice wasn't served in this case when it comes to his career and his future in the NFL. There will not be radio silence about Mitch Trubisky here. If there's more to this story that unravels, I'm going to report it and tell you about it. It's the right thing to do. It really is just shocking to me. You know? Shocking that it came out, of course, but even more shocking that nobody cares. Oh, move on. Right? Move on. Justin Fields is here. Move on. New coach. New GM. There are still loose ends that need to be tied up. There are still explanations that we are owed as Bears fans, as people who cover and follow this team. If you give your money to the Bears in any way, whether it be merchandise or tickets, you deserve to know how this story ended. How every story ended. Everybody made a big deal, and rightfully so. A couple of weeks ago, when Olin Kreutz said the Bears offered him $15 an hour to be some offensive line coach. You kidding me? He's an alumni, made millions of dollars. He's going to take a $15 an hour job? Oh, that's minimum wage in some states at this point. That was a big deal, rightfully so. That happened 10, 15 years ago. Nobody said, oh, it doesn't matter. That's why this matters too. You deserve to know the resolution and how things end. We're not just going to forget about something because it isn't convenient. It isn't cool to talk about. No, we're going to talk about it. Just like the rumor that Matt Nagy might have been hired by Detroit. If Matt Nagy is hired by Detroit, oh boy, you better tune in. We're going to do a huge video. I might break my set. I might punch a wall in my set by the end of that video. We're not going to forget about something or forget about other people when they wronged somebody and they weren't held accountable. Matt Nagy was never held accountable. He got fired. Okay, sure. Made millions of dollars. For a year, was told it was Mitch Trubisky's fault, not his. Had the media on his side. And for those who say, oh, he's a great guy, this doesn't sound like a great guy attitude to me. He might have been nice to some people, not to everybody. And again, I get it. There are some bad things said inside locker rooms. Believe me, I know. I played baseball for years. I almost played college ball. I know. But at the end of the day, the way things translated on the field, the way Mitch Trubisky was treated on the field, that's inexcusable. And the same for Justin Fields. Really. Okay, for him to go out there in his debut game as a starter and get sacked 9 times by the Browns, are you kidding me? Yeah, way to protect your brand new quarterback. I mean, what a jerk. Really, what a jerk to do that to Justin Fields. And everybody forgets about that game, and I get it. I mean, he had some good moments, but let's remember that too. Not his fault. Let's remember what Matt Nagy did to him. What the Bears did to him. Then they wonder why they never get great players to come to Chicago. Well, look what you're doing. You're hurting a brand new quarterback. You ran out your other top pick. Allen Robinson isn't happy, and he was sabotaged too. When there's a pattern of sabotage to your own players who are either trying to get paid or trying to put up good numbers and win, yeah, I don't blame other players on the outside looking in for not wanting to come. Why would I come here if I know this is how the organization runs and this is how it operates? So that's an overarching issue, but needs to change. Hopefully it will. Hey, new coach, new GM. I'm at least cautiously optimistic. New assistant GM, brand new position. I mean, that's great. I want to see results, and I would just hope, and I'm pretty confident at least this will happen, there won't be a repeat of Matt Nagy type football. I don't expect Eberflus all of a sudden turn into Matt Nagy, sabotage his players, have problems with them. I don't. I'd be shocked. Same with polls. So we got to hope for the best here, but I won't be forgetting about the old regime and what happened. You shouldn't either. And if you want your news about it, because no one else is going to talk about it, come here, and I'll make sure that you're always informed. And you know exactly what happened to those guys who hurt other players and made this team go into the ground. Thanks for watching today's show here on BPOD TV, channel 59.3 in Roku. Really appreciate the time. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports and on Facebook at Jon Zaghloul. If you want to watch more of this show, search up Sports Talk Chicago on YouTube or go to sportstalkchicago.com and tune in every night at 10:30 right here on BPOD TV. So long, everyone.